others, but this is the standard. So this is what you see is dry vapor coming out, liquid nitrogen, dry vapor coming out of here. Inside, that's 150 degrees, minus 150 degrees centigrade. So if you held your hand in there for about 5 or 10 minutes, it might just fall off. I mean, it's the opposite of burning. So what you're doing is bringing materials down to where cells are stabilized, and they're stabilized at minus, generally speaking, minus 136 degrees centigrade. That's the point where you reach the glass point. That's the point where you force out all crystalline-forming H2O, and what's left inside is H2O that does not form crystal. Okay, because if it formed the crystalline structure, it would break the membrane and destroy the cell. So when it gets to that point, the cell is in a state of suspension. Theoretically, you could freeze a cell cryogenically. You could hold it for 1 million years at those cryogenic temperatures. And if you did so, when you thawed it out, it would be exactly the same as it was when you froze it initially. Now, you can't do tissues that way. You can't do organs that way. You can do some tissue, but you can't do organs that way. You can't do human beings that way because the water retention is different. And the protocol for forcing out that water in the various cell aspects of the body is different. So we can't do that right now. Maybe someday we'll be able to do that. But that's what cryogenic temperatures do, and that's why they're so important to life sciences. Because life sciences are based on biology, they're based on cells. So this is important. It's very important. We have a unique technology. It's made up of three different components. This is one example of our packaging. At the core of this packaging is a dewar. The dewar is invented by Sir John Dewar in 1874. A dewar is really a vacuum bottle. It has an R factor. It's an insulating factor that holds its contents at the temperatures in which the content was inserted. In this case, it's liquid nitrogen. In other cases, it might be something else. Your common dewar is your thermos bottle. It keeps your coffee warm. So at the core of this is the dewar. And then around this packaging, around that dewar, is a lot of packaging for absorbing shock and for protecting the dewar flask. And then there's a recording device, a temperature monitoring system. This particular one, it does not have a temperature monitoring system, but normally there's a temperature monitoring system here. If the customer orders it, there's a probe that goes down through this patented plug and measures the temperature. So we record the chain of condition and the chain of custody all the way through the shipment. And we archive that information because it's important. It's important for science, but it's also increasingly important for regulatory. So you probably aren't familiar with words. You don't hear them all the time, like autologous, allogeneic. You certainly hear regenerative medicine, and sometimes you hear personalized medicine. But these autologous treatments and these allogeneic treatments are at the core of personalized medicine and at the core of regenerative medicine. And these things are taking hold. They're cell-based. So once those cells are created for both of those type of therapies, and there are hundreds of them, there are almost 500 clinical trials going on right now for biologically based therapies. Once those cells are created, they have to be stored and they have to be shipped cryogenically. And that's where we come in. But we don't stop with just the packaging. I mean, this package holds 75 2-milliliter vials. It's got a chamber inside. We're dealing with cells, so we're dealing with small objects, okay, small commodities. The next size dewar holds 10 times that many. The next size holds 20 times that many. So we have other dewars, and then we have smaller dewars as well, because sometimes it's diagnostics or you're shipping laboratory to laboratory. But if it's cell-based, it must be shipped cryogenically. There's a law in cryopreservation, generally speaking, it's called, it says the colder the better. There's some exceptions, but not often. So let's go to the slides, and I'll just kind of walk you through a few things about what we do. Go to the next one. So, we're in about a $1 billion market. A lot of people don't know about our technology, and a lot of people don't know about the size of the market. And in fact, it's proprietary information because there's not a lot published on this market. It's a relatively new market. And even if you talk about regenerative medicine today, or you talk about you talk about autologous treatments, you know, you're not going to get many people who can converse on those things. But it's about $1 billion market, and it's growing at about 17% a year. Actually, the total market we think is more like $1.5 billion, and I'll go into that in just a moment. We do have validated solutions. All of our solutions are validated. They're tested. Every 2 years we go through and test our solutions against pretty rigorous criteria. This package is safe. It's non-hazardous. It says non-hazardous on the outside, where our competitors are dangerous, like dry ice, and which gives off carbon dioxide, and like liquid nitrogen, which is cumbersome and difficult to handle. We do have strategic alliances with the major integrators, like FedEx and DHL. The reason they come to this tiny company, remember DHL is about a $120 billion company, FedEx is about a $45 billion company. The reason they come to this company for their cryogenic solution is because we're the best. And they don't even try to reproduce our software, which is our second bucket of tools that we work from. We go to the next slide. And the next slide. So packaging, I've talked about a little bit. Talked about the fact that it has the data logger, it measures the cryogenic temperature, which is not an easy feat. Then the information technology is really, the center of it is the most robust operating platform in the cold chain. And when I say operating platform, I'm talking about software that has over 1 million lines of code, about 1.3 million as a matter of fact. It would take you about 4 or 5 years and take you about $35 million to reproduce it. These are estimates given by us, by other people. It's an operating platform that starts off with order entry, generates the paperwork, including all the customs documentation, and then allows us to track the packaging all the way through the logistics process. So we track it. We know when things are supposed to be, where they're supposed to be. If they're not there, flags go up, and we determine the level of intervention that we take. Sometimes it's serious intervention through third parties, where we actually go in and take possession of the door, and we may replace the door, we may recharge the door. Sometimes it doesn't require. Intervention is just the fact that it's been slowed down by customs for a day or so. So information technology, and then the third one is our logistics expertise, the kind of thing I was just talking about, the fact that things happen in the cryogenic space that don't happen in other spaces, and it does take some knowledge, some specialized knowledge, to handle cryogenic shipments as opposed just to shipping a box from one place to the other. We'll go to the next slide. This is the standard door that I was talking about earlier inside this package. It's patented, it's unique. This represents the walls. This is the holding chamber. This material on the side holds the liquid nitrogen in gaseous form, and it holds minus 150 degrees centigrade for 10 days in dynamic conditions. You can go to the internet and you can find other claims of holding things for 30 or 40 days, but not in dynamic conditions. We're unique. And what makes us unique, in addition to the packaging, is the fact that we have the information technology and the cryogenic logistics expertise, which allows us to develop solutions. We don't just simply have a product. You know, in one case, we're a total outsourced solution for a large company. We manage all their cryogenic shipping, whether it's liquid nitrogen, dry vapor nitrogen, or whether it's our doers or their doers, or what, and we even manage their distribution network. So we can go to very complicated solutions as well. We can go to the next slide. These are just some screenshots of our information technology, which is innovative. There's not another operating platform on the face of the earth that's as powerful as this platform in the logistics area, serving the cold chain. And in fact, those integrators, which partner with us, actually use our software as opposed to their own. Invariably, they come in saying, "We like your packaging, but the software, we do that all the time. We can do that." Within a couple of weeks, and I'm generalizing, they come back and they say, "No, we can't do that quickly. We can't do it economically. We probably could do it at $30, $35 million, 4 or 5 years, but why don't we license it from you?" And that's what they do. So when you go to their websites, what happens is when you go to the deep frozen area or the cryogenic area, it flips over to our software. We can go to the next slide. And then the global logistics expertise I talked about. We do monitor every shipment, and it depends on what the customer wants, what the client buys. But we monitor every shipment. We intervene when necessary, and we make those recordings, for science and for regulatory. This is what the market looks like. At least it's one depiction. We did the research. There was nothing on the market when I took over a couple of years ago. So we did the research to determine exactly the size of the market, and I divided it into current, should, and could. The current market is liquid nitrogen, and that packaging will be found mostly in animal husbandry and with large pharma. All laboratories have a few doors around. It may be a small laboratory with 2 or 3 around. It may be a large one with 1,000 or more. So that's liquid nitrogen. That's one part of the market. That's cumbersome, it's expensive, and it's dangerous. The second part of the market, the should, are those folks who work in cryogenic conditions, then they ship on dry ice, then they go back to cryogenic conditions. Now, dry ice is -80, and dry ice sublimates quickly and it sublimates unevenly. It sublimates on the top and it sublimates inside. Most of the materials that we measure that are stored in dry ice are not -80, they're -60. So what does it mean? That means those cells are still quite alive. If a cell is alive, it's degrading. That means that you screw up an experiment, or some cells just die. So they aren't worthy. So what happens is, historically, before biology advanced to the point it is now, people would ship 30% more than they need, for that shipment, just to take care of the waste. Or they would take the chance. And sometimes they lost entire shipments. There are many abruptly ended because of dry ice failure in hot temperatures, like in Mumbai, for example. So dry ice has its problems. And what's happened, in addition to the issues with dry ice of the sublimation and the dangers of dry ice, and the fact that the pilot can determine whether he wants to take on a dry ice shipment or not. In addition, science has gotten more and more finite. It's gotten smaller and smaller, more sensitive to temperatures. So what used to work with dry ice won't work with dry ice anymore. So you're getting to a point where there's a push and a pull, or a pull to using cryogenic shipping methodologies. And so that's the should category. The could category is the category of cell lines where you could ship them cryogenically. You don't necessarily have to, but you might want the peace of mind. Let's take that Mumbai, or let's take a Shanghai shipment, because that's exactly where the could category came from. I was with a company, and at the end of the discussions, the plant manager said, we have a cell line that we can ship at -80, but we lost an entire shipment last year. He said, you would be and we also ship 25 to 30% more than we normally need. You could be the cheapest, best insurance policy we could have. And so he shifted over and started, shipping using our larger doors. So that market, the primary market, is about $1 billion. That secondary market, we think, is about $300 million to $500 million. So that's why I said it's about a $1.5 billion market. Currently, our shippers cover those 3 segments of the market, but our software can cover everything in the cold chain. It's very adaptable, and that's why I call it information technology as opposed to software, because I think eventually we could even have an information play with that. We go to the next slide. So the dynamics are that the market is globalizing and is growing very quickly. I mean, that's really the short of it. And there's a huge amount of growth in Asia right now, both in China and India. And clinical trials are going global. And all this is biologically based. 10 days you can ship anywhere in the world. And with our monitoring, you can have surety that you're going to get your product to where it needs to go get it there when it needs to be there. We also, take care of that chain of custody and chain of condition, which is quite important. Many times when we're making demonstrations to scientists, they look at the doors. They're very impressed with, the way they're engineered and so forth. But the thing that knocks them off the seat many times is the fact that we take this nuance out of the equation. You'd be amazed at many laboratories, large laboratories as well as small, they're actually keeping that information on pads, and they're writing it in on notebooks. So having this recorded and having it in an archive is very important. We'll go to the next slide. So we have, our focus is on 4 areas. It's on the life sciences, of course, on reproductive medicine, and I'm talking about IVF there. The number of cycles in the world is increasing very rapidly because women are getting married later, and problems are being addressed that heretofore could not be addressed. The integrated solution, which I referred to a little bit earlier, it's our outsourced solution for larger companies, whereby we go in and manage the entire cryogenic logistics process. And then the last one is our distribution partner strategy. So those are the four efforts that we have moving forward. We can go to the next slide. We've been reasonably successful. We're still dealing in small numbers, but we've had 10 quarters of quarter-on-quarter growth, and we're at an annualized run rate now of just under $4 million, and we'll end this year most likely at around, a run rate around $5 million in volume. Our holdback has been funding and getting enough salespeople on the street. The uptake we anticipate once we are funded properly will be much greater than that. So that's our balance sheet, and not anything very exciting there, except to say that we are in positive gross margin territory and got a lot of work to do in that area. Our recent advancements have been our financial progress in having positive gross margin and attracting all of the larger integrators in this space to be our partners. And of course, the markets are growing very rapidly, and we are gaining attention, and not nearly as much as we need, because funding does help us in marketing and in sales. We'll go on to the next one. So we think that we've had there's some inflection points of de-risking our business, that as our CFO puts it, and that is our revenue growth, our proven ability to deliver, and the fact that we do have validated solutions. No one else in the industry has validated solutions. So we can go to the next slide. We think we are creating shareholder value from the things I've said. I don't think there's anything on this slide that is new. I think that, except that we are the first to market, there will be competition in this marketplace, but we are first, and what we intend to stay first, as competitors do emerge, but they will emerge. And we think there are a lot of operating levers to pull in this business to grow the business. So that's the presentation. I'd like to answer any questions you have or take any comments you have. Thank you very much. Thanks.